Uyaqhubeka uzongiphelela la.
Ngiyaqala
Ungangithinti, ungangithinti.
Makhosi, siyaxolisa iphisa amakhosi inyembezi.
Umthulaza. Mangabe ukuthi njengoba ngihlenga yona ntombi lethi yona ngicela ukuhamba njengamanje.
Hi, darling. Welcome back. So, is polygamy just African tradition? Or in the 21st century, is polygamy used as a tool to not take accountability for your reckless behavior? So, on today's topic, darlings, I want us to unpack whether or not polygamy in the South African context could be seen as tradition, or it's just another tool used by some men to not take accountability for their lack of sexual discipline or a sense of morality. So what I want us to do before I unpack everything, I want us to go on this journey together. Today's topic is going to be grounded by the philosophy of Ubuntu, which basically means I am because we are. Why did I choose this philosophy for today's topic? I will let you know at the end of the video. But before we do that, I want us to just briefly go through some of the things I think are quite advantageous about polygamy and things that are actually disadvantages to this custom and system, especially in the context of 21st century South Africa. So as I was doing research on this topic, I was looking at a few articles on Google Scholar. There's an article by CRM Dlamini and an article by Andrews, I think, and a few research papers that I went through. Don't worry, it's not going to be a lecture. We're going to go through this very quickly, okay? So the first advantage that I noticed about polygamy is that from the research, it shows that polygamy is a very helpful system in cases whereby the woman and the man do not have the healthiest type of relationship, but divorce is not an option. So they don't want to dismantle the beautiful machine that they have. They are good parents to their children, but they would rather either add someone else to the equation because they want to have assistance in the house. So in a situation like that, polygamy is advantageous, and also it helps with creating a community of people to connect. Like you're creating a village to raise your children. Your children have other siblings. Your children have a network of people to connect to. There's just safety in numbers. There's community in numbers. And also from a economic level, I know some of you are not going to like this, but from an economic level, if you say there is a wealthy man and he's marrying different women who might come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, him marrying into those families, even though it might seem a little transactional, let's actually entertain this thought that there is an economic benefit as well to women marrying a very wealthy man, because now not only are you helping one family, you are also helping the woman's family. So it's just creating avenues for wealth and everything. And I'm not saying that's the only reason, but let's actually look at that from a South African perspective and understand that, yes, our economy is not the most amazing. So in that sense, polygamy as a business, as a transactional relationship, does have certain advantages to Black families. as I was reading some of the articles, I also realized that there's also women who are open to polygamy. Even on social media, there are actually women who want their husbands to take a second wife. And some of the reasons that I saw was that it's better distribution of labor for household activities. And in the case whereby a woman cannot, traditionally, when a woman cannot bear kids for her husband, there are scenarios whereby polygamy is permitted because that can help that woman with the family growing the family, especially mostly royal families. I've noticed mostly royal families do that. But I also was a little shocked because as I was reading the articles, I found some information that I feel like we already all knew this information, but some of the information was a little worrying. What do I mean by that? There's an article, a research article with multiple authors, and it talked about how they've noticed a trend amongst a lot of women who enter polygamous marriages. Usually, their education level is usually very low. Obviously, not every single woman in these scenarios are just uneducated or illiterate, but there is a tendency whereby a lot of them are from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. They tend to be very young compared to the man they're marrying into. And in some cases, some of these women don't have an equal say in what happens to their bodies or their autonomy over their bodies. So that's the worry. Because I was reading HIV stats and everything, like not being able to have control over your body because you are dealing in a situation where your position is subordinate in that scenario. In some cases, not every polygamous, I know there's probably polygamous people who are healthy and good, but these are some of the disadvantages because we have to talk about the dark side. There's beautiful things. There's wealth distribution. There is bigger families, bigger units. There's just other advantages. Just let me know something that I might have missed because I feel like I am missing a few pieces of why polygamy is so advantageous. But there are advantages. Even in some points, there are situations whereby the woman's health is so decrepit or she's reduced to a vegetable. There are scenarios where I could understand why polygamy is permitted. But I want us to go through these videos. The videos that I shared with you in the beginning were showing a very different side and a very negative side to this custom of polygamy. So the core issue that I have with a lot of these shows in South Africa that talk about polygamy is that, first of all, they don't encapsulate the true and respectable form of polygamy. In these cases, it's a man who doesn't even have any kind of economic advantage. He's not a part of royalty. He's not wealthy or rich. In these scenarios, it's usually very, I'm not going to say they're poor or broke, but in these scenarios, you can look at some of these men that a lot of them are just average working men. Average working men who travel for work or just had an affair. And then all of a sudden, because you want to absolve yourself from the guilt of cheating on your wife or your girlfriend, you are going to suggest polygamy. You can tell that a lot of the men in these scenarios suggested polygamy at a later stage, because I genuinely understand that if the man were to suggest polygamy from the beginning of the relationship, that's a very different topic. If your husband or your boyfriend, you knew from the beginning that he was a polygamist or he wanted multiple wives, and you decided to enter that relationship knowing that he is a polygamist, then that's okay. You already knew, you're not surprised. But the reactions of these women crying and being emotionally distraught, you can just tell that this is not a thing that they consented to. I find it quite scary when someone is willing to emotionally hurt someone they claim to love. And you can't tell me you love someone when you're willing to traumatize them like that. People don't understand the level of trauma that comes from being deceived, being lied to, and finding out that your reality, this beautiful picture of your relationship that you thought you had, is not real, and your partner had someone else. It's way different than being an honest person and saying, hey, I want to have multiple wives, and can you join me on this journey? Are you open to doing that? I would prefer that than someone who hides that they're polygamist, because you're giving the woman an option. For me, it just sounds like you are manipulative. You are essentially manipulative, because you knew already that your girlfriend or wife doesn't like polygamy, but you cheat, and then you suggest this thing as a way to clean your guilt, to clean and try and solve this mess that you've already created. That is not fair. That is not fair. You've created a mess, and now I must join you on this mess. And people don't understand. If you've already created a relationship from chaos and toxicity, why do you think it's going to be a beautiful relationship? So I was watching a few videos that I genuinely believe offer better insight into what is polygamy and what are some of the things people have to consider and think about before entering a polygamous situation or relationship. These two videos really helped me unpack and understand this conversation. Okay, so let's watch the videos, darling.
Because we want to look cool. And then when it's mid-20s, late 20s, maybe in the 30s, you want to try get married and pretend like you don't have a history. We need to speak, and in that speaking, we need to explain polygamy or polyamory to our children. Because today, men want to have a main, and then they want to have a side and sleep around. And they're like, well, men are not naturally monogamous. No. If you want to be polyamorous, if you want to be polygynous, you need to be trained. It's almost like having multiple children. You want to have extra children, but you don't have the money. You want to have extra children, but you don't have the capacity. It's the similar thing in marriage or in relationships. If you would like to have two women, are you able to carry all the stresses and requirements of two women? And you train children very young so that they can see, I would have loved to be a polygamist, but I do not have the capacity. I do not have the financial muscle. I do not have the time. I do not have the energy. I do not have the emotional support for more than one person. And then we need to train.
I researched and I sat with wise men, to say, is this correct? Because something really seems off. I mean, I knew it was off, but I needed that wisdom to cement it. And absolutely agreed with me. And when I came out and spoke against how this culture of polygamy was now being presented, where your wife is just ambushed with the mistress, and or it's a mistress 10 years, and now there's a new and I'm here to ask. And I was like, we got to address that, because this is a narrative that supports a toxic kind of masculinity, right? But if we were to talk about what polygamy really was to begin with, it wasn't about lust. It wasn't about men. Actually, polygamy is for and is about women. Okay. And that is why I refer to it as an empowered decision to take another wife. Because as a husband, you don't take the power away from your wife to make that choice for herself. She decides for herself that for whatever reason, I want another wife to come in and assist in this household.
It's not about men. It's never been about
It's never
men.
been, in fact, it's always been about the family. And so as soon as you subtract Ubuntu, which is at the core of who we are as Abantu, as soon as you attract Ubuntu in that process, it's not.
If there's one thing I truly appreciate about these two videos by Penwell, I think Penwell, and the lady on the KG, I don't know the show, sorry, I don't know the show, but one thing I appreciate about those conversations, that they mentioned a lot of key important things, like, are you financially ready for a polygamous situation? Which a lot of these men who are in these shows are not ready for financially or emotionally. The fact that you had to hide the other relationship tells me you don't have emotional intelligence, because any emotionally intelligent person would be honest about who they are. You just show that you haven't truly discovered yourself. You're not fully grown. You're not wise. Because if you already knew your desires, your type, you would knew from the beginning that you're a polygamist. Financially, are you a polygamist? Do you have the resources to be a polygamist? Do you have the mental capacity? And there's something that lady said that I found quite profound, and that is, polygamy was not about lust. It wasn't about, in the traditional sense, it wasn't about just a cheating man. It was for obviously economic reasons, but you also were spiritually guided, or you had people guiding you into that process. Certain people were chosen for it. It wasn't for everyone. If you look even in today's context of South Africa, the biggest polygamists are people with money, like our former president, the king, the Zulu king, and the Swati king. Those are just examples of very wealthy men who are polygamous in the traditional sense. Not someone Utabo, I'm sorry Tabo if you're here, but not some random Tabo who wants to be a polygamist, but you live in a 4-room house or RDP house. That's not polygamy. You're taking someone's daughter from their family and putting them in struggle, and then you're putting 2 women or multiple women in struggle love. I don't think that is a healthy society, and I don't think that is a healthy environment for children to be in. Yes, struggle is real in South Africa, but now you're adding more people to poverty. Now you're adding more people to chow your small salary. There is a lot of considerations. Are you mentally mature enough? Are you an honest person? Are you financially there? Are you? Because if you look at all these scenarios, most of the men who are polygamous are wealthy. Even Umselegu said it here in this clip.
Gross yakamselegu per month, gross, I think now is around 30,000. Gross. Ibuke kanje lento amagongwe namafutha zonke lezinto ziko 4,500 bese ufaka izinto zokucleana, you see, so kusho ukuthi izokunikeza lapha ko 6,000 and nakhona kuncane per household, so bese uyamultiply kusho ukuthi sofika ku 30, so kusho ukuthi the income efanele siyenze thina fanele ibe ngaphezulu kwalokho. Okay, ufike siqale ku point yokulingana, equality.
Even from that clip, you can just tell that there is finances involved in polygamy. It's not just this thing of uchitile, you cheated, now you're trying to fix your mess by being a polygamist and you're traumatizing someone's daughter. Because sometimes when I watch that show, and it's just very triggering for me watching people cry, like, and you are there knowing you caused your girlfriend to cry or your wife to cry. For me, that's just, yeah, no. So why did I choose Ubuntu? So before I unpack my reason for choosing Ubuntu, let's read this quote from Desmond Tutu. One of the sayings in our country is Ubuntu, the essence of being human. Ubuntu speaks particularly about the fact that you can't exist as a human being in isolation. It speaks about our interconnectedness. You can't be human all by yourself. And when you have this quality, Ubuntu, you are known for your generosity. We think of ourselves far too frequently as just individuals separated from one another, whereas you are connected and what you do affects the whole world. When you do well, it spreads out. It is for the whole of humanity. So why did I quote Ubuntu as the core feature of this entire conversation? If you think about this philosophy and think about how as Black people, we are all connected. When you do something negative, it spreads out like a fire and affects other people. You are not an isolated island. Whatever you do has a rippling effect. So for me, it's when I see scenarios of these people, some of these men cheating and creating trauma, creating this negative feeling in their wives or girlfriends, creating just trauma and infidelity and broken trust. How do you think you're going to create something beautiful when already you're starting from a very broken foundation? How are you spreading positivity? How do you expect to create a positive relationship or positive polygamous household when you have already started from negativity? Because negativity spreads. You're already reading a scenario. You don't think about if these women are even a good fit for each other because you didn't think about that. How are they going to be with each other? Are they also going to be toxic to the kids? Toxicity spreads. It doesn't go only from the parents. It goes from the parents and all the kids in this polygamous situation. So you need to be aware of how we are just all connected and how when you do something negative, like waves in the ocean, it creates a ripple. It spreads to other people. That's why a lot of people have trauma, especially parental trauma. So imagine already from two-parent households, there's trauma. And now you already are a toxic individual, creating even more toxic families and more kids to experience your trauma. I think, in my personal perspective, we need to think more about the appropriate ways. I don't necessarily think polygamy is good or bad, but I think we need to think about it in the bigger picture. Some people are okay with polygamy and some people are not. That is for religious reasons or personal reasons or moral reasons. But think about that before you be honest about you as a polygamist from the beginning. Give people the ability to choose before they enter a relationship with you. And also, don't denigrate culture to fit your own negative narratives. Just because you cheated, admit the fact that you cheated. Now you must add polygamy. All of a sudden, you are a polygamist in the future. Oh, I feel like I was a little emotional and less logical a little bit in this conversation. But I want to hear from you. Maybe I'm wrong. You're right. Maybe I am half cooked. This conversation could be half cooked. Let me know. What do you think? How do you feel about polygamy as an individual? How do you feel about polygamy, 21st century polygamy? Let me know, darling. And if you watch the video till the end, leave a ring emoji in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.